The freight tech disruption by now has become common jargon for logistics and supply chain companies seeking to overhaul their operations. But what does it mean for some of the largest motor carriers on the road in the U.S.? And most importantly, what does it look like? Well, today, folks, we're going to find out how new breakthroughs in artificial intelligence, Internet of Things technology, and cloud computing are impacting enterprise carriers. Get hyped for this episode of Loaded and Rolling. Welcome to Loaded and Rolling. I'm your host, Thomas Wasson. Now, back in December, Werner Enterprises announced a deal with fleet hardware and technology provider Samsara that, as the Wall Street Journal noted, was part of the Omaha, Nebraska-based Werner's plan to use cloud computing to become a $5 billion company in the next few years. Now, the article further notes that for Samsara, the San Francisco-based AI, it uses cameras and cloud-based IoT software, which is pretty cool. It's going to allow Werner to detect road incidents based on signals, harsh braking, and coach its over 10,000. I can't very well, folks, I'm from Tennessee, 10,000 professional truck drivers via audio warnings if the cameras pick up on risky driving behavior such as speeding. Now, for those of you unaware, this is kind of a big deal. According to FreightWaves rankings, Werner is the 10th largest carrier in our top 500 U.S.-based for-hire carrier list, and so having that deployment at scale is going to be super fascinating. Now, for those of you who don't know, AI-driven cameras and technology platforms are often targeted at small fleets for testing, so rolling out these capabilities at an enterprise level for a nationwide truckload carrier is a development worth watching. Joining me today to talk about what this means for Werner and how evolving technologies are helping Werner's growth strategy is the CIO of Werner, Mr. Daragh Mahon. Now, Daragh has over 20 years of IT strategic leadership experience and was hired by Werner back in 2020 to help modernize their technology. Previously, Daragh was a senior vice president of global IT and business application for Vonage and even an official member of the Forbes Technology Council. Welcome, sir.
How are you, Tom?
Doing pretty well. Super excited to have you on the show. We talk about enterprise trucking, so it's always awesome to have some folks from an enterprise trucking fleet come on and talk about it. Diving right in, talk a little bit about how did the partnership with Samsara come about, and what was some of the background?
I think first and foremost, it was mostly around the fact we were looking for a new forward-facing camera solution. And what we wanted to do was combine a couple of things. We wanted to combine the ability to just help, obviously capture what was going on the road, but improve safety. And it really is about our driver safety. It's about the motoring public safety. So how can we pick the best solution that would give us the two things we needed, which was, record video, so that we had it, use that video to feed into our event resolution system so that our fleet managers could then use that video to coach and help our drivers just be safe on the roads and get better. So it's about driver safety. It's about driving public safety, so who's on the roads and make sure that they're safe. And then it's about what can we learn from the experience? What can we use that video data to learn from in the future?
And video data is kind of a big deal. Was there something unique that Samsara does with collecting the data, or was there some kind of innovations that made the front-facing camera unique? I spoke to a few folks about the cameras. It turns out there's many different types, and so it's not like a unified, here's a camera, there you go.
Yeah, Samsara aren't the only game in this. We looked at 4 or 5 different solutions, including the one that we were currently using, and we just felt like Samsara had the best possible technology. One of the things I say all the time is my goal is to use applications built on top of APIs, and we found that Samsara not only had a great API so that we could ingest their data, so we could just pull all that data off the truck, but they also were the ones who were most willing to work with us to sort of customize or make an API that would work specifically for Werner and for our system. So that was the first thing that we looked for. The second part is the video quality is excellent, and it really is when you look at the quality of video coming off a truck that's rolling on the road at 55 miles an hour, it's hard to imagine how good they got that quality. And secondly was speed to get it off the truck. So how fast can an incident happen? And we know about it. With Samsara, they've built out their network, their extraction process, if you will, to get the data to us. They built it out so well that we have it in seconds. So all of those things, along with it, just felt like a really good relationship. Samsara technology team were on the same page as my technology team, especially around the APIs. So we felt like this is a really, really good partnership. It felt like it was the right way to go. So all of those factors combined to us picking Samsara.
I remember I spoke with him way back in the day. This was back in like 19. I was with US Express at the time. And how camera technology has evolved is so fascinating because, like you said, within seconds of an event occurring, you basically know, like, so does the driver, I'm assuming I get like a text saying like, hey, slow down, or do you have to go through like a chain?
Yeah, so we do two things. So we do voice coaching as we roll it out. So we're doing voice coaching, and it is, the voice coaching will say, "Hey, overspeed warning! You're over the speed limit, or you're over the speed that we want you to drive at." The second thing is following too close. So they're the two most critical voice coaching we use. So you're following too close, because we measure that using machine learning and AI. But if there is an event like a harsh braking event, like some sort of a harsh turn event, we know about it, and our fleet managers who are monitoring our event resolution system know about it within seconds, and then we can take appropriate action. But it's not, it's called them to give coaching to say, hey, we watched the video, here's what you could have done better. But it's also, the flip is true as well. So we see things where drivers reacted very, very well. We have great drivers, they're professional drivers, and we see time and time again where they avoided a bad situation by just good driving. So we also pick up the phone, we'll call those drivers and say, hey, good job, and you couldn't have done better, and high five, thanks for doing what you do. We also, one of the things we're working on right now, which is not using Samsara, but we're working on a video coaching tool so that we will be able to connect just like we are right now and use video calling to have a conversation with the driver face to face on whether it's a congratulatory call or a call about, coaching. We'll do it over video in the future.
I like the positive stuff. A lot of times when I was a fleet manager, you'd have like 55 drivers, you're staying busy all the time, but never had time to give them props. You're normally just dealing with problems, or if they got in trouble, a safety person would reach out to you and say, hey, get on to them for like doing this, or they would reach out. So is that kind of a way, using this technology, you can almost have like better interactions between folks, and it's not also negative?
Right. We all like positive reinforcement. And if you look at, we have 8,500 trucks on the road every day. There are many, many more, examples of good driving than there is of bad driving or areas where you could have done better. So what we're trying to do is accentuate the positive here and give people props, give them a high five, give them a virtual high five, as it were. Just say, hey, good job. You couldn't have done any better. You avoided an accident. You avoided a bad situation by your professionalism, by your good driving. And like I said, there are many more examples of good driving than bad driving on any given day.
Looking at legacy systems, I remember from some of my experience, some fleets I've even seen from like large shippers use like even old AS400 systems, which I've had to use in my past with my hotkeys.
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges when you look at trucking, where a lot of the systems you didn't need anything fancy, you just had to not break, and then trying to upgrade from legacy systems, overcoming tech debt, and then moving into newer ones? Were there any surprises or challenges when you looked at it and figured out a plan?
No, I mean, you're looking at a company. We use AS400 today. And if you look at why people continue to use AS400, I mean, it's reliable, it's scalable, it's fast. The problems with legacy systems like AS400 is they aren't very easy to connect to. They're sort of becoming less and less common, so there's less and less people who have the skills to work on it. I mean, you need RPG people to work on AS400. So the biggest problem with it is it's old technology, and it's not really getting refreshed. And as I say, in a world where I think of what we do as applications built on APIs, you really can't connect APIs to AS400. You can through multiple layers, but it's not easy to connect to. It's not easy to get data on or off. You've got a really old green screen or orange screen UI, which nobody wants to work on. So, part of it is just about rebuilding that technology. And let there be no mistake. Werner built a $3 billion company on AS400. That's the technology that's driven it this far. So it's done its job, but its time has come, and now it's time to move on. And that's what we're in the process of doing right now. We're actually moving pretty rapidly. We're moving to cloud-based SaaS solutions wherever possible. We buy wherever we can, and we only build what we feel like differentiates us, what makes us better, what separates us from the competition is what we build. Everything else we buy. I don't need to build a CRM. Plenty of people have done that and done it very successfully, so I can buy that and implement it. I don't need to build financial systems because that's been done. We're working on a TMS with a company called Mastermind, or with Mastery. The product is called Mastermind, and again, that's really important to us, and that can be a differentiator. And then things like our ERS platform, like our safety, are really, really maintenance platforms. They're the things that can make us different and better and more marketable than anybody else.
I think that's what's fascinating. A lot of people don't think about, if you're a large publicly traded trucking company with thousands of trucks on the road, it's not as simple as just buying a one-stop shop if you have like 10 trucks. Everything has to talk to each other, all has to work together. I remember Manhattan was one as well that some folks had integrated in. But, building versus buying, like you said, especially like a TMS. I talk to TMS providers all the time, but I always feel like they're just targeting like 5 trucks and they just want you on the platform. Is there anything unique to when you scale it, or are kind of the fundamentals the same in terms of what you need to get done?
So the fundamentals are not the same. I think the scale is the important part. So you're right. There are lots of TMSs out there, but they tend to become very sort of ubiquitous in terms of functionality. We're trying to solve the same problem for everybody, but large carriers like Werner have more unique problems. We're operating at a much larger scale, and I feel like the TMSs that are out there today, they don't operate at the scale we need them to. So as a result, you end up implementing them and customizing them so much that they end up, 2, 3, 30 years down the road looking nothing like what you originally bought. So one of the things that drew us to Mastery as a TMS was the guys at Mastery. They wanted to create a scaled TMS that covered all areas. So we're not just a truckload carrier. We have a logistics division, we have a dedicated division, and obviously we have a one-way division. So we needed something at scale that could operate in all of those areas and make us better in all of those areas. And there was nothing out there that you could essentially just buy. So Mastery are getting there. We got involved because we wanted to get our feet under the product table and help influence what they were doing. And so far, it's been really good. Our entire logistics operation is now running on Mastermind, and we're doing, we feel like we're doing really, really well. We've got a very aggressive, growth plan on it. We've got a very aggressive plan to get off of AS400 and onto it, and it's going really well.
I remember back in my days when I had trying to wean oneself off of AS400 was always crazy. And you didn't have a mouse either. You had to use like the F key, the function keys. And so I like what you're saying, getting logistics. We see that a lot even with like your CH, XPO, Arrive. A few other folks are trying to do their own digital TMSs and stuff. Is that kind of a winning strategy? Is it let the brokerages test it out, it's asset light, have the TMS functionality, and then kind of port it back? Or are there ways where you're just kind of, would it be better to design a fleet ops from the ground up and then, test it as you move along?
Well, I think so. There's merit to building your own TMS. And like I said, we're in the best of both worlds, right? We're helping design and build a TMS that works for logistics, works for dedicated, works for one-way, for van. But ultimately, what Jeff Silver and the team are doing there is they're building a platform that will work for large companies that anybody can use, anyone in our space can use, and smaller. I mean, across the gamut. However, what we're getting the benefit of is helping to influence how it looks. And then we'll use APIs, we'll use exit points through APIs to develop the secret sauce that makes us better. So I don't think about it as, we all have the same needs around moving freight. You've got to have, freight execution. You got to have a way to execute the freight. And a lot of that is basic and the same, but what's different is when how do you optimize? How do you route plan it, things like that? And that's where we'll come in and we'll take data off the platform, we'll do some routing, we'll do some optimization, and we'll put it back on. So I think we get the best of both worlds. We get to buy a platform, a TMS that's built for large companies that operate at scale like Werner, but then we can customize and configure it to make it work specifically for Werner, whatever our secret sauce is, which obviously I'm not going to tell you, but we'll configure it to do what we need it to do, and that's what will make us different from our competitors.
I won't ask the
Werner's
23 herbs and spices.
No, we can't do that. It's like the Coca-Cola recipe, right?
But looking at, I like what you're talking about, especially optimization and stuff, because with that kind of scale, if you build the ability to route your trucks, even from either fuel routing or how you plan your loads or how you select your customers, like even a small percentage change is like a huge cascading effect on like what you can do. Is that the same Jeff Silver who did the Coyote stuff in the Bazooka platform, I wonder?
It is. It sure is. And, so one of the things you do know about Jeff Silver is the guy knows technology. He knows the logistics space. So he's going to do good work, and he has done great work. And we love working with him and his team. They really have, like I said, our truckload logistics is 100% on Mastermind right now. And it's running really, really well. So they've done a really good job there. And now we're moving into the asset, and we already have a really good feeling of where we're going with asset over the next 12 months.
Well, I like the partnerships too. That's cool.
Yeah, he's quite. I mean, he really. Jeff is a visionary. I mean, I think everyone knows that. Over the last 30, 35 years, he's become a legend in this industry, and he's a visionary. I really enjoy working with him. So do my team. He's got a lot of really unique ideas, and he challenges us, which is really important too. Like thinks about, he makes us think about different ways to do things, especially from a technology perspective. Operations. Werner's a really good company where we operate really, really well, but from a technology perspective, as we move to SaaS-based platforms, Jeff and team challenge us to think about it differently and how can we do things differently.
Well, it's what I like. Trucking, it can be hard, especially with large trucking companies, to think of yourself as a technology company as well because of the changing nature of the game. You see it a lot with digital freight brokers and stuff. Obviously, tech first. We now have terms for it, but with this Mastermind platform, I am kind of curious because he did Bazooka, he did Coyote. Is that kind of, like you said, that's the secret sauce, that's the holy grail, is you figure out how to make that with an asset. And it's not something that, I've seen few TMSs designed by engineers, and they look like they're ran by the engineers, but not the end users. Is that kind of the silver bullet, is then you show it and you grow it, and then it's integrated?
I think it's two things. So first of all, Jeff is very much a product visionary, right? He knows how it needs to look and operate, but then he also knows that he needs to come in and talk to, his customers to figure out how it should look and operate. So Jeff very much has here's how it looks and operates. He's a great technology team who are building the underpinnings of it from a technology perspective, but he also sits and they talk to me and my team, and we collaborate on how that looks. So I think that's it. We always try to remember, first and foremost, and Derek Leather says this all the time, Werner's a service company. Make no mistake about it, is the way he puts it. First and foremost, we have to service our customers. And we do that by moving freight and being on time every time, or 99.5% of the time, like we were last year. So that's the goal. And all technology should do, as much as I want us to be a technology company, I like to think of us as a service company led by technology. So the better technology we put in place, the better we can service our customers, and the better our service becomes. And then we become a really, really great company. So it's a combination of tech, great service, and just great operations, because that's what Werner does.
I like the operations part. I'm an ops man myself. They just happen to throw me in a podcast, and I'm still learning the media component.
Go. You're doing a really good job, Tom. So
that's what's so much fun, getting to talk shop, because folks don't understand how much, if your operations component is not supported by good tech. I've had situations where even at other companies where they're using an Excel spreadsheet even, and you don't have, you're going through 500 different steps. So that's what I like with this product offering. I had no idea that Jeff was involved. This is really cool. I'm gonna have to have him on the show too. Who knows?
You should have him come on the show. He's like I said, he's quite the character, and he's a legend in the industry. So you should do it. I think, for me, I've been in this industry 2.5 years. I joined in June of 2020. And, you kind of walk in thinking, hey, it's a trucking company. How complicated can it be? And then you look at the scale of this operation and you look at how, I have nothing but admiration for our operators, for our fleet manager, for our safety people, our legal team, because there is so much that goes into making this machine hum all day, every day. It's a 24/7 operation. We're keeping 8,000 trucks on the road. So I have to provide the technology to do that. But man, the operations teams, the fleet managers, the safety people, it is absolutely amazing how much complex, how much it's a complex operation, but how much they make it look so easy. And it's not easy, not by a long shot. I learn about it. I'm still learning about it, and I'll be learning about it 10 years from now.
I always feel that way. Every time I swap to a new job, I'd say, man, I finally get a head start. I know what I'm doing finally. And you rotate in the new job and you're like, nope, guess what? Time to learn a whole bunch of new stuff.
Right, and I actually drove. I mean, back in the mid '90s, I drove. I still have my CDL, but I drove for about 9 months, and all I did was deliver stuff. I didn't realize how complicated it was in the background.
That's amazing.
So you
went to. Did you start out and did you go to Vonage, or how did you end up going from driving to then going into the technology game?
Nah, I came to the US from Ireland in 1994, and me and a couple of my buddies figured, hey, we grew up in a farming background. We figured a great way to see the United States would be to go and drive. You'll get to see the entire country. And we traveled the entire country, but the reality, Tom, is we saw mostly interstates, truck stops in the backs of warehouses. So it wasn't quite the exploration of the United States we thought it would be, but it was a great experience. I will also tell you, it gives me a lot of empathy for drivers. I understand what they go through. And then I left there. I'd always been a bit of a geek. So I went I went to work for a company called Petrie Software. I got involved in technology there. We got acquired by a company out of the UK called Sage. So I spent almost 20 years between Petrie Software and Sage. Did a lot of acquisitions, a lot of big systems rolled out. A lot of virtualization when it became a thing, a lot of SaaS rollouts when it became a thing in 2009, 2010. Got recruited by Vonage to modernize their tech stack. Even though they were a relatively young company, their back-end systems were very, very, sort of big ERP, essentially, on-prem ERP. So I helped move all of their solutions. I, did quoting on Salesforce, did a lot of provisioning, just made their whole process in the background, helped make that a lot easier, and moved it all to SaaS-based platforms. And then somehow got involved in the conversation with Werner and, ended up here. And I'm loving every minute of it. It's fantastic.
Are you out in Nebraska?
Yeah, I did. I was out of Atlanta, moved to Nebraska in June of 2020 when I took the job.
I had an old director. He came from Werner, and he talked about grilling tomahawk steaks. And in the South, I'm from Chattanooga. I had no idea the tomahawk steak existed. And so now I see these giant pieces of meat. We have to make a trip up there. Big thoughts. You have experience making changes company-wide, developing new systems and deploying. A lot of folks don't know. If you ask the Harvard Business Review, the odds are extremely difficult to make it happen. Are there any tips or anything you experienced over your career that people at other large companies are thinking, crap, I got to help roll out the systems, or anything practical to even try to wrap your head around it?
I think I got a career full of tips and tricks, but I will say that to me, there's three things that are really important. So the technology has got to be right. So there's no point in trying to roll out technology that nobody wants to use. So that's the first thing. And then I think the other two things sort of feed into that. You got to talk to your end users. I think, if I go back to the late 90s and early 2000s, and even I think all the way up to 2010, IT kind of had this attitude that they knew better than everybody else. And I know I'm probably going to incur the wrath of a lot of IT people by saying that, but that was the truth. We felt like we listened to business, but we knew better. And I think what's happened over the last 10 or 15 years is that we realized we don't know better, and we've got to give the business what they need to make them more productive. So you've got to sit down, you've got to understand what your business counterparts need. You've got to understand the business. I think that's really important. And then the third thing, and this is, I really, really believe in the MVP method of rolling out software. So it's an agile process. It's minimum viable product, which sounds a little bit negative, but the reality is what you're going to do is get something together as quickly as you can, roll it out, let the business start using it, and then iterate on that and improve it over time. And that's exactly, if you look at what we've done with our logistics platform with Mastermind right now, June of 2021, so 18 months ago, we moved one load on the logistics platform. And the next day we moved 3, and the next day we moved 10. And every time we moved more loads, we had more learnings, and we went back and we we made changes with Mastermind and with the Mastermind team. And here we are 18 months later, and our entire logistics operation is on that platform. So no big bang, just do it iteratively and learn from your changes.
Final question, got about 30 seconds left. Folks want to learn about Werner Edge, or the platform. What's the best way they can check you all out?
I think there's two ways, at Werner.com and click into Werner Edge, but then I think just Google, because we've been doing a lot. One of the things we want to do is just position ourselves as leaders in technology and transportation. So I think if you just Google, you'll find a lot of stuff that we're doing as an organization from a technical perspective. And then, I'm always available, so you can reach out. I'm not that hard to find. LinkedIn, and reach out, and I'm always available to talk.
Perfect. Daragh, thank you so much for coming on the show. Looking forward to watching what y'all are up to, and super excited to see see what you all are developing. It's definitely exciting times.
Yeah, great, Tom. Thanks for having me, and don't be a stranger. Reach out and we can talk anytime.
Will do. We're gonna get them to fly me up there eventually. We will see when FreightWaves likes me enough. We'll go on site. That's gonna be it for today, folks. Though, join us next Tuesday at 1 p.m. That's all for Loaded and Rolling. I'm Thomas Watson. Join us next week. We'll do it live.